My name is Jennifer Gibson, and I will be completing the interview portion. The first question is, what talents, skills, and abilities do you possess that you believe are important to be an effective administrator? I believe that I would make a great future administrator because I have the capability of leading a group of people to achieve some greatness. I can lead a change movement, and I can be a positive role model in a school environment. There's three things that I think that totally can make up a great principal. The first one, I think that you have to be willing and accepting of change. And I am somebody that likes new initiatives. I like to learn about new things, and I think that you need to be on the forefront of education in order for this to work. I also think that with that comes a sense of you having to be able to lead that movement. Not only is it important to have an idea of what you want the movement to be, but also how can I effectively make those changes in the school system. I also think that it's extremely important to go into a school system with a positive attitude. I don't think that you will ever change a school system unless you do have a positive attitude that can go throughout all of the different staff members at your school. Unless you have a positive attitude, the morale will be down, things just will not progress. So I think that one of my biggest abilities that I possess is the ability to be positive even when things are going not as you planned it, so to say. The second question is, how do you see yourself as a dispositional fit for school system leadership, and to give a rationale for your answer. I feel like in order to be a solid fit for school leadership, you have to be somebody who believes in something and will go after it. I think that so often we can get people that are just kind of wishy-washy almost, and they don't really go after what they have planned. So I think that the number one thing that you have to be willing to do is to believe in something and go after it. If you do that, I think that no matter what, you can be a good leader. But when you don't believe in something 100% and you don't even make an effort to go after it, it's never going to work out. So I think that you definitely have to be somebody who is going to be willing to take charge. And that's definitely a quality that I have, is I like to go into a place, and I do like to be more of a leader in an environment. And I guess you can also call that a weakness of mine. But I like to help, and I like to be the one that is going to help these kids succeed and be willing to help them in the future even with whatever they need. And that also goes in terms of teachers. If there's ever a problem with a teacher, I've always been more than willing to help them out and no matter what's been going on with them. So I think it's really important as a future principal to know that there's something that you believe in. And definitely it's got to be that each child deserves an awesome education where they can be successful one by one. And I think that as long as you go in and believe that, then no matter what, your kids should succeed. The third question is, what is your vision of a school for 21st century learners? I think that now more than ever, this 21st century learning has got to be a predominant thing of your administration. The 21st century learning can also wind up with a lot of barriers for your students. The problem that I think that we can see when we're trying to get this vision of mine of success one by one for each student is that so often with the technology barriers and with even poverty and just at-home life barriers, it can be so difficult for us to achieve such a great vision. Each student should obviously have the right to a fair and equal education that is excellent, and that includes your teachers being excellent. That includes your teachers going above and beyond. My whole goal in education is to create an environment where students first and foremost know that they're loved and they're cared for. Because I think that after watching many of my students go through their schooling life that I have now, the one thing that they often miss is the ability to be cared for and the ability to be loved. And the unfortunate reality is that many of our students don't have that at home. And I think that they need people who can care for them and can love them. And they need to know that sometimes if I'm being mean or I'm being a little bit hard on them, that it's because I love them And it's not because I'm just trying to be, a hard butt or anything. I think that this all starts with your attitude, and with your students' attitude, and with your teacher's attitude, and of course with your administration attitude. If you're not a positive role model, if you don't have a positive outlook on your day-to-day life and the day-to-day ongoings of a school, things will never get better, and your vision will never be succeeding. I think that I've made it one of my top priorities to always try to have a positive attitude in class, even when things are going not as I've planned. And I think that we have got to keep that attitude going, because you will wind up affecting all of your teachers and all of the students in the school. So I think that in order to even have an idea of 21st century learning and a vision where we can create success one by one, it has to start with the number one person, who's your principal. So they have to have a positive attitude. They have to be willing to break the barriers that these kids have, to care for the students, to love for them. And I think with each teacher, each staff member, each administrator having a positive outlook and a successful attitude too, one where we know and believe that we can succeed in anything, that success will happen one by one. Number 4 asks, discuss the role of an educational administrator as a school system manager and instructional leader. I think that the educational administrator has the most obvious influential role in school based off of managing and instructional leading. Without a leader that can positively influence the school, I know I keep coming back to this idea of positivity, but I think that without it, your school will inevitably fail. I think it's very crucial to find somebody that can delegate. And that can be a hard thing for me, because I do like to kind of be controlling, and not in a bad sense. I just like to get things done. I have a vision for how I want to get things done. And when you have people that you can't trust, that is where things can come in to be a problem. So I think that obviously you have got to get people that you can rely on and that you can delegate to. It's important that you have somebody as your leader that can delegate, and that will also allow people to get the job done without being too overly bearing. It can make people not trust you as much, and I think it's important to have that idea of trust. I think it's also to have a leader that's very knowledgeable of instruction, and I mean, at minimum, they can help direct you in a way that will help your instruction level. And if there's something that they don't know, they can say, hey, maybe I don't know this as best as I should, but I do know this person that would be more than willing to help. I think that this can truly make the difference in a high-achieving and a low-achieving school. And I've seen this firsthand, that many of our first-year teachers come in, and if you just ask for some help, and if we can direct you in the way that you need to, this will definitely help with the success of your school. But you also, on the other end, you have to have somebody that's very good at managing a school. And I think that this can be a double-edged sword, because it's so hard to find a good balance of instructional leadership to managerial. Managing a school is a very large task, and it's one that's super important, because without somebody that's looking over the day-to-day activities in a school, that it's going to eventually fall apart. A school that is clean, that is organized, that everything is going well, is a school where kids will succeed. Students need to learn effectively. In order for that to happen, that it has to be in a school that is indicative of a learning environment. And without having a management system, then things aren't going to go the way that you have planned. So I think that it's super important that your administrator be willing to delegate in some of these things, because being a manager and an instructional leader, it's just a lot of work, and it's going to be impossible to get everything done unless you do start delegating. And I think that's when you need to look at surrounding yourself with people that are very influential and knowledgeable. Don't be afraid to hire people that are smarter than you, because then that'll just help you out too. The last question is, in your planned program, what would be a critical need that you would have in order to prepare you in becoming a successful administrator? And I think that mine might be a little bit different than some people's, and it's simply because of the principles that I have seen in the past and that I watch on a daily basis. And I think that the number one thing that I would like to know in this planned program is how to be a rule enforcer, how to be fair and consistent while not being a hated principal. I think that many people and many students and teachers for that matter see their principal in two ways. Number one, they see their principal as somebody that they can manipulate into doing whatever they would like. I know that I've had some of these that, you know, if you smile nice and if you act really nice to them, that you can get away with anything. And then you also have the other that no matter what you do, they're going to be your worst enemy. They're going to yell at you first. And you can't turn to them if you're having a problem. And I think that that's the most important thing, is that you have to know when to discipline. You have to know when to love them. But there has to be a solid balance. You can't always be their friend, and you can't always be their enemy. I think it's always interesting to sit back and think about the principals that I've had and that I currently have and that I see on a day-to-day basis. And it truly almost always falls into these two categories. But I think that there can be a balance, especially if you listen to those around you. If you listen to your secretaries, because they hear everything. Your secretary is the one that normally they even do have some kids in the school system. But you need to be willing to listen to people to tell you, are you being consistent? Are you being too friendly? Are you being too harsh on them? Are you loving these children enough? Because that's obviously the number one thing that they need. But I think that the number one thing that I really need to focus on and that I would love to have more backing on is how to have a good balance there. How to really lead discipline, but at the same time love the kids. I think that's such a fine balance and something that's so hard to do. But I think that with the right backing, the right knowledge, and the right understanding, I think that this is something feasible to learn and to master. Thank you.